What if everything you've been told about triggering cellular repair is incomplete? Not slightly off, not missing a detail, but missing an entirely different pathway. Here's what I mean. Right now, somewhere online, someone is on hour 52 of a water fast. No food, no electrolytes worth mentioning, just willpower and the quiet hope that suffering long enough will eventually flip the right biological switch. And here's the difficult truth about that. It might work. Mechanistically, extended fasting is associated with deeper autophagy activation, but the physiological trade-offs, elevated stress signaling, potential muscle protein breakdown, metabolic fatigue that can take days to fully recover from, mean some people may be paying a significant biological price for a repair window that researchers are now investigating from a completely different angle, a smarter angle. Because the switch they're trying to flip, it may have another pathway, and that pathway involves a molecule your body already recognizes. A molecule found in ordinary food. A molecule that, when combined with specific polyphenols in the right sequence, may activate some of the same cellular repair pathways associated with extended fasting. Without the same degree of deprivation, without the same disruption to daily life. That molecule is spermidine. And today, we're going deep on the emerging science behind how it works and how researchers believe it may interact with other longevity-related compounds for amplified cellular effects. Stay with me, because by the time we're done here, the way you think about cellular repair may never look the same again. Let's start with an uncomfortable question. Why isn't standard intermittent fasting working the way everyone expected? Not for everyone, not consistently. Specifically, why does a 16 to 8 window, done correctly, appear to produce profound cellular effects in some people and minimal noticeable changes in others? The answer may involve something researchers increasingly describe as metabolic rigidity. And in 2026, more people than ever appear metabolically inflexible. Here's what's happening. When you eat a standard modern diet, even a relatively clean one, you're chronically exposing your cells to elevated insulin signaling, mTOR activity, and growth-related pathways that repeatedly push the body toward growth mode rather than repair mode. Over time, those signals can become persistent. They don't necessarily quiet down just because you skip breakfast. A 16 to 8 window lowers calories. It lowers insulin temporarily. But in someone with years of metabolic conditioning, elevated baseline mTOR activity, suppressed AMPK signaling, 16 hours may not always be enough to strongly activate deeper autophagic pathways. The cleanup systems begin shifting, but the biological environment may still be sending mixed signals, which is why the biohacking community moved toward longer fasting windows. 72-hour water fasts, multi-day protocols, the suffering as strategy approach, and to be clear, the autophagy research surrounding extended fasting is real. The mechanisms are well documented. I'm not dismissing the science. But prolonged fasting can also carry physiological costs that often get ignored online. Cortisol, one of your primary stress hormones, tends to rise during extended fasting, particularly after the 36-hour mark. And in some individuals, prolonged caloric stress may increase muscle protein breakdown as the body attempts to maintain blood glucose availability. In other words, the body isn't always selectively recycling only damaged tissue. Sometimes it's simply trying to survive an energy shortage. There's also the refeeding issue. After multi-day fasting, nutrient sensitivity changes dramatically, which means how you break the fast matters enormously. Poor refeeding choices may partially counter some of the metabolic benefits people were aiming for in the first place. The physiological exhaustion associated with aggressive fasting protocols is real for many people. And for some populations, especially older adults, highly active individuals, or people dealing with hormonal stress, the cost-to-benefit ratio may not always be ideal. Which brings us to a fundamentally different question. What if, instead of relying entirely on deprivation to encourage cellular repair, you could potentially support some of those same pathways through targeted nutrient signaling? This is what some researchers are beginning to explore as nutrient-led repair. And it starts with understanding a molecule most people in longevity circles have heard of, but few fully understand. The name sounds ridiculous. I know. But the biology behind this molecule is genuinely fascinating. Spermidine is a polyamine, a naturally occurring compound found in virtually every living cell. In the body, it appears to play roles in DNA stabilization, cellular regulation, and importantly for this discussion, autophagy-related signaling. And here's the mechanism that makes researchers interested in it. Most approaches to activating autophagy work indirectly. You fast, you lower amino acid availability, you suppress mTOR through caloric deprivation. Spermidine appears to influence the process differently. Research suggests it may interact with an enzyme called EP300. EP300 is involved in regulating proteins associated with autophagy initiation. One way to think about it is as part of the cellular system that influences whether repair pathways stay quiet or become more active. Studies suggest spermidine may inhibit EP300 activity, which may help create conditions favorable for autophagosome formation and cellular recycling activity. And importantly, at least mechanistically, this may occur somewhat independently of complete mTOR suppression. That's the part that makes spermidine especially interesting in longevity research. It suggests autophagy-related activity might potentially be influenced without requiring extreme caloric deprivation. Now, where does spermidine come from? The richest dietary source is wheat germ, particularly fermented wheat germ. Mushrooms, legumes, soybeans, and certain aged cheeses also contain meaningful amounts. But here's where things become more nuanced. Your body maintains what's called a polyamine pool, circulating reserves of spermidine and related compounds that cells rely on for various functions. And research suggests those levels tend to decline with age. By middle age, endogenous polyamine production may be significantly lower than youthful levels, which is one reason spermidine supplementation has become increasingly popular in longevity-focused communities. But here's the important nuance. Spermidine alone may not fully optimize downstream longevity pathways. Some mechanistic studies suggest that while spermidine may help initiate autophagy-related activity, additional pathways involved in mitochondrial quality control and stress adaptation may require broader signaling support, which is where the polyphenol stack enters the picture. Think of spermidine as opening the door. What we're discussing now is what may help coordinate what happens afterward. Sirtuins are a family of proteins associated with cellular stress adaptation, mitochondrial regulation, inflammatory balance, and longevity-related signaling. SIRT1 and SIRT3 are especially relevant here. SIRT1 appears involved in regulating genes associated with autophagy and metabolic adaptation. SIRT3 functions largely inside mitochondria, where it helps regulate mitochondrial quality control and oxidative stress management. When these pathways are functioning efficiently, cellular cleanup and mitochondrial turnover may operate more effectively. Two polyphenols are especially interesting in this context. The first is EGCG, the major catechin found in green tea. Research suggests EGCG may activate AMPK and influence SIRT1 signaling, while also modestly interacting with mTOR-related pathways. The second is quercetin, a flavonoid found in onions, capers, berries, and apples. Quercetin appears to influence AMPK activity and has also been studied for potential senolytic effects, meaning researchers are investigating whether it may help the body clear certain senescent cells associated with inflammatory signaling. And this is where the synergy concept becomes interesting. Spermidine may help initiate autophagy-related activity through EP300 interaction. EGCG may help support SIRT1 and AMPK signaling. Quercetin may help reduce inflammatory interference associated with senescent cell accumulation. Together, these compounds may help create a biological environment more supportive of cellular repair and mitochondrial turnover. Now, an important nuance on timing. EGCG undergoes substantial first-pass liver metabolism, and some evidence suggests consuming it away from large meals may improve bioavailability, which is why many protocols place EGCG and quercetin in a fasted or semi-fasted window before a spermidine-rich meal. Not because timing creates magic, but because absorption dynamics may matter. That sequencing may help the compounds operate more synergistically rather than independently. Let's talk about what may actually be happening inside the cell when these pathways are activated. Your mitochondria are constantly changing. They divide, fuse, break down, rebuild. And over time, through oxidative stress, inflammation, and accumulated mitochondrial DNA damage, some become less efficient. They still consume resources, but they may generate ATP less effectively while producing higher levels of reactive oxygen species. Researchers sometimes informally describe these dysfunctional mitochondria as zombie mitochondria, still present, still active, but no longer functioning optimally. Mitophagy is the process through which cells identify and recycle those dysfunctional mitochondria. SIRT3 appears heavily involved in regulating this quality control process. And when mitophagy functions efficiently, the ratio of healthier mitochondria to dysfunctional mitochondria may improve over time, which may influence mitochondrial efficiency, oxidative stress, balance, energy regulation, inflammatory signaling. And this is where many people report subjective changes. Not a stimulant-like energy spike, more of a steadier baseline energy and mental clarity, similar to what some individuals describe during extended fasting states. But here's the key distinction. Extended fasting often reaches that state through substantial caloric stress. Nutrient-led approaches attempt to support some of those same repair-related pathways while potentially reducing the physiological strain associated with prolonged fasting. The outcome may overlap in some respects, but the route there is very different. All right, theory is done. Let's talk about what this could realistically look like in practice. Here's the general structure many longevity-focused protocols follow. Morning. Water first. Electrolytes if needed. Then a polyphenol-focused window. Matcha or green tea for EGCG. Quercetin alongside if supplementing. Many protocols place these in a fasted or semi-fasted state roughly 30 to 45 minutes before eating to potentially improve absorption dynamics. Then comes the spermidine-rich meal. Fermented wheat germ remains one of the most concentrated dietary sources. Mushrooms, legumes, and certain aged cheeses may also contribute meaningful spermidine intake. The goal isn't starvation, it's strategic signaling. Later in the day, protein intake increases again to support recovery, muscle maintenance, and anabolic balance, because this is another nuance most people miss. Longevity isn't just about breakdown and cleanup, it's about rhythm, repair and rebuilding, autophagy and recovery, cleanup and reconstruction. And that's why many researchers increasingly view aggressive, nonstop autophagy activation as potentially counterproductive long-term. Your cells likely need alternating periods of repair, rebuilding, nutrient abundance, metabolic challenge, balance matters, which is why many protocols cycle these approaches rather than running maximum intensity interventions continuously. Let's land this. Extended fasting may absolutely activate meaningful autophagy pathways, but the idea that intense deprivation is the only route toward cellular repair is increasingly being questioned by emerging longevity research. Spermidine appears capable of influencing autophagy-related signaling through EP300 interaction. EGCG and quercetin may help support the mitochondrial and sirtuin-related pathways that influence how efficiently those repair systems operate. Together, they may help create conditions supportive of mitochondrial turnover, cellular cleanup, and metabolic resilience. Not as a miracle shortcut, not as a replacement for sleep, movement, or overall nutrition, but as part of a broader strategy researchers are actively exploring in the longevity space. And this conversation goes even deeper, because timing may matter more than most people realize. Circadian biology appears to influence autophagy responsiveness, mitochondrial signaling, hormonal repair windows, sirtuin activity, meaning the same compounds may produce very different outcomes depending on when they're used. That's what we're exploring next. Because once you align nutrient signaling with circadian biology, the entire equation changes. Stay close.